Fantasy drafts are quickly approaching, and we have got you covered at the running back position. We have ranked the top 20 running backs and put them in tiers so you'll know just when to draft them. All that coming up next. Hello, everyone. I'm Gary Kurtzman.
And I'm Eric Lee, and we are the Fantasy Football Consultants. Gary, I am so excited with the season right around the corner and excited for this show because we're going to talk about the cornerstone of your fantasy football team, running backs. So we're going to rank the top 20. Quick reminder, in the description is links to all of our preseason content, including NFL DFS previews, NFL Survivor for week 1, as well as other info to get you ready for your fantasy football leagues.
And you won't want to tune away because we have a special surprise. I'm not going to put any teasers out there. No spoilers, but we have a special surprise at the end of this video that you are going to want to stay tuned to. So don't turn away.
All right. And if you're enjoying all this content, please smash the like button, share your thoughts in the comment section, and smash that red subscriber button. Gary, let's get into the tiers for the top 20 backs. Our first tier is a very small one. There's only 2 people allowed in this club.
Yep.
It's Christian McCaffrey and Austin Ekeler. So let's talk about Christian McCaffrey. This guy is an amazing dual threat. You know, in every season, he has averaged at least 5 receptions a game. I didn't say targets, receptions, 5 receptions a game. And then he comes to your San Francisco team with all the many offensive weapons that you have. And all he did was average a combined total between rushing and passing 110 yards. So he's awesome. I just want to ask you this one question because I only have one concern. And that one concern is darn Eli Mitchell, because he steals some of McCaffrey's carries. Without Eli Mitchell, McCaffrey had 15 carries a game. With him, 10 carries a game. How much of that is a concern that you have as a Niner fan?
As a Niner fan, I'm not concerned at all because I love it. But as a fantasy owner, which I know is what you meant, am I concerned? Sure, I'm concerned. But look, gone are the days of the bell cow back. You know that. I know that. Where you get 85 to 90% of the running back touches. Most of the elite running backs sit around the 75% range. Now, McCaffrey's going to be a little lower than that, but he's still going to get about 70% of the touches. He only needs, say, 12 carries a game to go along with his 5 receptions. And, God, McCaffrey, I mean, top 2 in touchdowns for the last 2 years as a running back, top 2 in receptions. And his ADOT for running backs is deeper than almost everybody else. So he's going to get the yards with those. I'm not worried because if he can just do a 12-5 split, which he did last year with the Niners, right? Even with Eli Mitchell, then, he's going to be sitting at over 100 yards. And Eli Mitchell, speedy as heck, but they're not going to give him the goal line carries. So it's not a vulture situation. So I'm with the first pick in the draft in a full PPR, half PPR, no PPR, I'm comfortable with Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah, and it looks like of your little quarterback carousel, it's going to be Purdy as the quarterback for most of
no carousel anymore. Things are looking pretty good in San Francisco,
and I think that's good for McCaffrey. Of the different options. Okay, so who joins McCaffrey in this club?
The other guy with back-to-back seasons with at least 200 carries. And the other top 2 pass catcher, that would be Austin Ekeler. I love this guy. Have I mentioned that I love this guy? What I love most is that he's going to have Kellen Moore calling his plays because it was a disaster last year. Kellen Moore did wonderful things, not just with Zeke, but with Tony Pollard, who was a little bit more comparable skill set.
Yeah, if I have a concern with Ekeler, it's the fact that he really benefited from the fact that Mike Williams was hurt a lot and Keenan Allen was hurt a lot in the passing game. His numbers usually are not as good with both of those guys healthy. And for the Chargers' sake, we hope that this year they will be healthy. But you definitely got to like his floor because of how important he is to this Charger offense.
Absolutely. And at the goal line, they never seem to go to anybody else. Number 1 in touchdowns the last 2 years. His floor is insanely high. And let's face it, Eric, in the first round, that's what you draft for, the high floor.
All right, let's go to our next tier. Includes Barkley, Henry, Chubb, Robinson, and Jacobs.
And to lead it off, Saquon, you see, Eric, he's the centerpiece of the offense. Now, I know the offense runs through the quarterback. I get that. But the fact of the matter is 1,650 yards, 10 touchdowns. It's like, Eric, he's back. We saw the Saquon Barkley of 3 years ago. And, hey, the sky's the limit. It's only going to get even better because they improved their offensive line. Theoretically, Waller improves their receiving core. I'm using receiving in quotes because I still don't like many, if any, wide receivers on the Giants, frankly, but I like Waller a lot, and he's got a great connection. So that means that they're going to stack the box. Do you know that Waller had the second most stacked boxes of any running back in the NFL last year, so 8 or more? And theoretically, with Waller, that's going to change to get better. So, Eric, I think he can only improve. Barkley, thank you.
Yeah,
I think he can only go up and improve. So I love this guy.
Yeah, I just like that he ticks off all the boxes that you want in a running back. A goal line back, a guy that gets involved in the passing game, a guy that gets a great lion's share of the carries. So the only thing to me that stops Barkley from being in this upper tier is you look at the Giant offense versus the San Francisco and the LA Charger offense, and the pie is just small.
Yeah, you don't say Giant offense in terms of really big, do you?
No.
Yeah, it's a little confusing, but yeah, I get it.
All right, at number 4, Derrick Henry. And when I think Derrick Henry, I think about that gambler at the casino, and you go, I'm on a win streak one more time, one more year for Derrick Henry.
Yeah.
All the things were stacked against Derrick Henry. Last year, he had a bad offensive line. There was nobody to throw to, so teams were stacking the box. And all he did was get an average of 22 carries and some like 97 yards and 13 touchdowns. The guy is just a goal line machine.
Yeah.
And here's what I love. I've been asking for it year after year. Throw the ball to Derrick Henry every now and then. Now, he didn't become Austin Eckler.
Were you shouting at the TV? How are you asking that?
Yeah. He was on my team, so I was writing letters to the coach. I was threatening anyone I could think of. But anyway,
this is unhealthy, pal.
Yeah, I know. But the point is, he turned one reception. All my efforts turned one reception a game up to 2 receptions a game. So yes, doubled his effort. But there's a whole lot to like. I get it. There are concerns. He is 29 years old. And we talk about that cliff.
It's like 100 in running back.
Yes,
right?
at the end of the 20s and certainly at the 30s for a run back. They still do not have a good offensive line.
Yeah.
They at least address their receiving core and bringing in DeAndre Hopkins. And maybe he has less of a, less guys in the box because they have to respect Hopkins. I'm also worried about game script. They could get behind in a bunch of games and turn to the pass. What are your thoughts about Henry here? One more time.
I love everything you said, and I'm drafting him with confidence. I really am, because we didn't see a slowdown last year. Until I see a slowdown, that's when I believe a slowdown. Okay, so I say draft Henry with confidence.
At number 5, we've got Nick Chubb, and Nick Chubb is, let's just face it, he is a superstar running back. He knows how to rush the ball. My gosh, Gary, 1,000 yards rushing year in, year out at 5 yards a carry. Yeah. This guy is so impressive. He is a goal line back. Like I said, he's just ticking off all the boxes. Doesn't do much in the receiving game, but Kareem Hunt is gone. So I expect that he'll get more receiving yards. So when I look up at this year with Nick Chubb, I think the sky's the limit. But I have one major concern.
Uh-oh.
Yes, and his name is Deshaun Watson.
That's the problem.
And 2 concerns. One, will Deshaun Watson just suck? But I have another concern. What if Deshaun Watson is really good and it turns this team, which was a run-first team before, into a pass-first team? Look, last year with Jacoby Brissett in 12 games, man, Nick Chubb was so much better than in the 6 games with Deshaun Watson. Do you share my concerns about this Chubb-Watson mix?
Yes and no. So I really covered myself there, didn't I?
Yes.
Okay.
Were you running for president this year? Are you throwing your name in the hat?
Okay. I would love it. Chubb would love it. Cleveland would love it. The NFL fans would love it, unless you're in Pittsburgh or Baltimore or Cincinnati would love it if Deshaun Watson was really good again. Rising tide rises all boats. And I love me some Cleveland scoring if I'm Nick Chubb, because he gets all the opportunities now near the goal line. Look, he's the best pure runner in the NFL. He really is. He shows it time and time again with the average per carry with Cleveland's offensive line. I love that. I am very worried that Deshaun Watson will suck. And if he does, then that will limit Nick Chubb's opportunities, just like a lower tide lowers all boats. So to me, that's why Nick Chubb is not in the top tier. If you were to tell me, bold statement, here's a hot take. If you were to tell me Deshaun Watson will get at least close to, say, his 2024 with Houston, I would put Nick Chubb in the top tier along with Eckler and McCaffrey. I really do, because he's unchallenged in terms of carries, and he's unchallenged with what he can do with those carries. He is phenomenal talent. I got a full show talking about this guy. Love it.
Okay. Well, yeah. So let's see what happens. Let's move on to number 6.
Number 6.
Bijan Robinson.
You don't see talents like this very often. The obvious comp is Saquon Barkley. Oh, we just talked about him. And, if you look at Saquon Barkley's rookie season, his rookie season was amazing. His rookie season would put him solidly in the second tier of running backs. That's what we can expect from Atlanta. Okay. Atlanta's offensive line is not as good as what Barkley's was in his rookie season. But on the other hand, no team in the NFL, outside of Cleveland, that is, runs more than Atlanta. And that was not true when Barkley was with the Giants. So I don't see any reason to believe that Bijan Robinson can't at least, go for 1,200 yards. I think I think he can get 10 touchdowns for sure. Certainly nobody's going to vulture. I'll tell you who I don't worry about. Let me see if I can anticipate a question for you. Tyler Algier, because you don't spend that kind of draft capital to not play the guy you draft all 3 downs. And frankly, Algier was a 5th round draft pick. He was good, but not great, not explosive, not the pass catcher Robinson is. Not worried about him at all.
And the question is, will they be on the field at the same time, right? Will they be able to still get Algier carries while they maybe spread out Bijan Robinson to catch passes? So I just can't believe where Robinson's going. I mean, we have him at 6, but a lot of people have him at 3 or 4, certainly ahead of Chubb and Henry, where we have him. I mean, are these people nuts?
We're drafting the ceiling, not the floor. I'll tell you that. I hate to draft him above Henry. I hate to draft him above Barkley, because I think at that point your ceiling is completely baked into your expectations, and there's no way that he can do any better than that. Whereas the ceiling is not built into the expectation with Henry or Barkley. Yeah. So I don't like it, but I do like him at number 6.
Number 7, Josh Jacobs, who's wondering, 7? Because I think you can make an absolute argument that this guy should be number 1. Nobody's having him at number 1, but that he might argue that he's at number 1. Think about, what do you want as a fantasy running back? A guy that gets a lot of rushes. Well, he led all running backs, all players, all in rushing, over 2,000 yards last year. You want a running back that gets involved in the passing game. 50+ receptions, something that wasn't a big part of his game in previous years, really came on last year, over 400 yards receiving. Well, you want a running back that gets goal line carries. Only one running back in all of football scored 100% of his team's rushing touchdowns. So in all respect, he's the perfect back, right? So why do we have him at number 7? Well, let me count the ways, Gary. Well, the biggest thing is we don't know what's going on. The latest that we've heard as we're filming is he should come to camp. He should join the team, but You're
talking about his contract dispute and the fact that he wants to get paid for that kind of a season. And the Raiders are like, yeah, have you noticed that there's no running back market? Yeah. No.
Yeah. What's your prediction on that? I mean, do you think that he will, because running backs are not getting what they want these days.
Okay, viewer, you can hold me to this. Crystal ball time. Here's what's going to happen. He's going to go where the money goes. And since he hasn't signed his franchise tag yet, he's not charged a dime by missing the preseason. However, once he starts missing games, now it's going to cost him $1 million a game, roughly, ballpark, right? So what's he going to do? He's going to come back to camp. He's not going to do a gosh damn thing. until the day before the regular season starts, and then he's going to sign the tender. So no fine, no nothing. But if you draft Jacobs, beware. I doubt he's going to play much, if at all, in game one, because he's not going to be game ready. Right. So you got to be a little careful with Josh Jacobs. And I think that, as much as anything else, is why he's at the bottom of tier 2.
Yeah. And I think that his absence in training camp has opened the door for Zamir White. Do I think Zamir White's going to take over the featured role? No, but I don't think that Jacobs will have just a hammerlock on the position. Instead of getting all the rushing touchdowns, maybe he'll cede a few to White. Look, no one else got more than 20 carries last year on the Raiders. I think that's going to change this year with White having a little bit more involvement. Let's move down to the third tier. In the third tier, we have Tony Pollard, Jonathan Taylor, Joe Mixon, Travis Etienne, Najee Harris, and Ramondre Stevenson.
Obviously, with Pollard, now that Zeke is gone, he's the lead back. And the best part about that is he's the lead back in the Dallas offense, because there's two main benefits to that. One is Dallas offense is likely to score top 5, maybe even top 3 points in the NFL. The offensive line is that good. The pass catchers are that good. I think Tony Pollard, who is very highly efficient with his 250 carries last year, is that good. And the other thing about Dallas is you got Ronald Jones. You got Malik Davis. Who? Wait, what? Who are those guys? Exactly. Those are the guys that are behind Tony Pollard. Nothing to worry about here, folks.
I'll tell you right now, if that is his competition in week 1, I would bump him up to the next tier. I still have a fear that they will sign another back. The good news is it's not going to be Zeke coming back, and it's not going to be Dalvin Cook, which is probably the two biggest concerns, right? It might be someone like a Leonard Fournette or Kareem Hunt. Number 9, we're not even talking about Jonathan Taylor in the top 8. He falls all the way to 9. And I believe for good reason. There's uncertainty as we're filming what team he will be on. He is clearly not happy. And my biggest concern, Gary, is that this is a guy who will be on the Colts. And let me just back up and just give you, yes, he's a guy who can be an amazing runner. He was 5.5 carries coming into last year per game, dropped to 4.5, but he was dealing with a lot of injuries. He can catch the ball. He can be a goal line back. This should be fantasy gold. But on the Colts, being clearly unhappy with a rookie quarterback who runs the ball a lot, it's just awfully scary.
But if he does get traded, he gets bumped up to the top of the second tier, because he's only 24 years old. It's not like the talent's going downhill. He is an amazing NFL talent. And on the right team, he would be a top 3 or 4 running back for sure, no question.
At number 10,
I like me some Joe Mixon. I like him because Samaje Perine no longer wears the tiger stripes. So, Joe Mixon has the pass catching chops. He was never given the opportunity because of Perine, but now he might, although quite frankly, when Perine was out, they really didn't pass the ball a whole lot to Mixon. So that's upside potential, but I wouldn't bank on it. What I love is first and second down and goal line carries for an amazing offense. Of course, all this is predicated on Joe Burrow being healthy. At this point, we think he's running on the sidelines at this point. So we're thinking he's going to be ready for week 1. He's got one of the lightest boxes of any running back in football. That's what happens when you have T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. So he's going to get opportunities with a great offense, and he's not going to get the touchdowns vultured, although maybe 5 from Joe Burrow last year, but that's not too bad. I like this guy, but I don't love this guy.
I don't understand the ADP. The ADP is by far the worst in this tier for us, going at 36. I just think he has a tremendous floor because I trust the Cincinnati offense. And he's the guy.
Who's next?
The next is Travis Etienne. I think we like him a lot because of the team that he's on. And we're really high on this Jacksonville offense. We think that with all the weapons, they're going to be putting up a lot of points and definitely moving the ball. And that's going to be the benefit of Travis Etienne. but it's his workload, his usage, which is most troubling. Travis Etienne has 56 rushing yards and 18 receiving yards last year down the stretch in the final 8 games. And he wasn't used consistently on the goal line. He only scored 5 of the team's 16 rushing touchdowns. So it's scary to me where his big upside is. I think he gets the floor because of the team that he's on, but it's hard for me to see him with the upside of a Pollard, of a Taylor, of a Mixon, and Stevenson is in this tier as well.
Yeah, I mean, look, he doesn't have the pass catching chops, and he likely never will. So he's kind of one-dimensional that way.
Number 12,
Najee Harris. The main running back of Pittsburgh should be higher than this, Eric. It just should be. He's not even in the top 10 in a team with an improving offense.
This guy's been just a huge disappointment. He lacks elusiveness, but what's most frustrating is he hasn't really, I think he hasn't got, last year he did not have a run more than 20 yards, right? So, so yes,
Jaylen Warren literally in the last preseason game busted a 60+ yard touchdown.
So here's the
Najee
thing.
Harris can't remember the last time he did that.
The mantra in fantasy football for years has been Mike Tomlin runs with one guy. So as long as you're the guy, no problem. For the first time in a long time, I am concerned that they don't just depend on Harris and they get Jaylen Warren involved.
Valid concern. That's why he's at the bottom of the 3rd tier. And if that scared you off, feel free to move him to the top of the 4th, because it's a scary world out there for Najee Harris.
All right. At 13, everybody loves Ramondre. This is a guy who keeps bopping up and down differently based on news, right? So Damian Harris is gone. It looks like, oh my gosh, this is going to be so great. He'll be the bell cow back. He'll be getting receptions, and he'll get the goal line. Well, 2 out of 3 ain't bad, because they signed Zeke Elliott, and I expect Zeke Elliott to take the goal line carries.
Look, here's the deal. I don't trust Bill Belichick. I don't trust him to use the running back that I think he's going to use, and I don't trust in my ability to know he's going to use, to know what the game plan is before the game. So if you have Ramondre Stevenson, you're probably starting them all 17, and there are going to be some games where you're going to get screwed by Elliott, either screwed in ways that you don't expect, which is Elliott actually getting 30% of the carry, or 30 to 35% of the touches, or ways that you do expect, which is Elliott is going to get a fair amount of the goal line carries. Either way, I worry about it, Eric. I really do.
All right, the next tier is Walker, Dobbins, Gibbs, Madison, Hall, Jones, and Cam Akers.
Question marks, one and all, Eric. So these are the frogs with the warts on them. Kenneth Walker is going to be a 2-down back. He's not going to be a 3-down back. Charbonnet is better in pass protection, probably already, which is a knock on Walker. And, quite frankly, Charbonnet certainly got the pass catching chops. So he's a rookie. Maybe it'll take time. Maybe, Walker will get the 3 downs for a while. But anybody who is just a 2-down back on a very well-balanced team, to me, you're limited in the ceiling, and I can't get totally excited about you.
It sounds like, as a Walker owner, you're whining already about Zach Charbonnet, because Gary, this is terrible news for Walker. Look, as a big Seahawks fan who loves watching Ken Walker break 60-yard touchdown runs with his amazing speed, there are 2 things that Walker does not excel at. 1 is pass protection, and 2 is short yardage. And I think that's huge. I think that's why they used a 2nd-round draft pick from on Charbonnet, that he will become the goal line back and the 3rd down back, and that will hurt his potential. All right, let's move on to 15. J.K. Dobbins. Well, Gary, this guy came off an ACL injury at the end of 2021. It didn't really get right until the end of last year, where he finished strong in the last 4 games, where he got 99 yards average on the ground. I think the big thing with Dobbins is he does very little in the passing game. and he splits carries with his quarterback in Jackson, who always is a threat to run the ball into the end zone over him. All right, at number 16,
Jamir Gibbs. He is an amazing elite pass catcher for running back, and he's like the human joystick and shiftiness. And the Detroit offense is pretty damn good, especially when Jameson Williams comes back after game 6. So I like Jamir Gibbs, and I think he's got a high ceiling, but man, I just think that ceiling is capped because he is not going to score a single solitary touchdown inside the 10-yard line. And that pisses me off.
He's not going to get the full benefit of the fact that Detroit ran the ball inside the 10 more than any other team in like 20 years. And that's why Jamal Williams had 17 touchdowns. So that'll probably go to Montgomery. But that said, I mean, he's a poor man's Bijan Robinson in the sense that I think that they're going to find ways to get him the ball, not only running the ball, but in the passing games. Let's move on to Alexander Mattison at number 17. So look, in 6 games over the past few years where Mattison has filled in for Dalvin Cook, he has averaged 20 carries and 4 receptions. So in other words, he has just stepped into that role of basically being Dalvin Cook. He wasn't as good as Dalvin Cook. He had about a half-yard average less, but that was great. You know, he get in that role. I think what a lot of people are assuming is that that's what's going to happen this year. He's just going to assume the Dalvin Cook role and everything will be great. Here's the problem with that. If you're the Vikings and Dalvin Cook gets hurt for 2 games, you're going to just say, we're going to roll with Mattison for 2 games. That's just what we're going to do. But when you're saying that for the entire year, if he does not perform the way you want him to perform, they are going to look elsewhere and not make him the bell cow back. And I just worry, Gary, how good truly is Mattison. Now, we talked a lot of times in fantasy for running back. It's not going to matter how good you are. It's a matter about the opportunities you get. Do you think for a full year, Mattison will get those opportunities and be the bell cow back?
Yeah, because I don't think they have anywhere else to go, frankly, just taking a look at Minnesota's depth chart. The thing that I am worried about with Mattison is he has never had a full season being the bell cow back. And just like Pollard, just like anybody else who's thrust into that role, you got to kind of take a wait and see approach, which is why he's down here in tier 4.
Yeah, could break down. All right, so moving at 18, speaking of breaking down, Breece Hall.
He's an unbelievable back, and he had an amazing week 4 through 7, where on a per-game basis, he was literally the top fantasy point getter at the running back position in all of fantasy football. And now this guy doesn't have Zach Wilson anymore? No. It all depends on what you think about that guy we just talked about, Dalvin, right? Is Dalvin cooked? You see what I did there?
Yeah.
Yeah. Or is he gonna, you know, at least for the start of the season, take the bulk of the carries? And Eric, I don't know. What do you think about that?
It's interesting. We just talked about Mattison, who got rid of Cook, and now we're at Breece Hall, who has to deal with him. You know, I think a lot of times you draft for the playoffs, right? So I like to think that come playoffs, he's going to be the primary back. But I think that they're going to take their time easing Hall in from the injury. So I think you're going to see very early on that Dalvin Cook is the lead backs. So what you should do is you can draft Dalvin Cook late and then trade him after the first couple of weeks for people who aren't paying attention to think he'll be the back for the whole time. All right, let's move on to Aaron Jones, who is at 19. And folks, we've seen the show over and over. It is the did I say Aaron Jones?
Yeah, you did.
Okay. At 19, Aaron Jones. We've seen this show over and over. It's the Jones-Dillon show. And what happens on Green Bay is you're going to see roughly a 50-50 split, slightly toward Aaron Jones. Dillon, the bigger, heavier back, is going to get most of the goal line work, and Aaron Jones will be more in the passing game. Gary, what's different, though, is no more Aaron Rodgers. So is the overall pie for this show going to be smaller because of the offense run by Jordan Love? No. Don't love him.
Your point about Aaron Rodgers was a terrific one. I don't like Aaron Jones because I don't like Jordan Love. And I saw him in the preseason in 2 games. Eric, he looked bad. He just looked bad.
There are two things with Jordan Love. One is how well can he run that offense and move the ball? The other thing is how often is he going to do dump off passes to Aaron Jones, who Rodgers was very comfortable with. It's a small sample size, I understand, but he's had 83 career passes, Jordan Love. None of those were completed to Aaron Jones. So
he's due, is what you're saying.
Yeah, I guess. All right, number 20, Cam Akers.
The Rams are the answer to the trivia question of outside of Arizona, who's the worst NFL team, period. Right? And maybe not even outside of Arizona, folks. It just, that is a lower tide that's lowering all boats.
But I share your huge concerns about how good the Rams were going to be. And I thought about this with James Conner, right? The running back on Arizona, where I think he is a bell cow back. And what do you do with these type of guys that think that their team is not going to score very much? They're going to be way behind. All right, I'd just like to say a couple things I think you should think about late in your draft. And I'd love it if you can pick a guy who is going to be one injury away from being potentially a top 2 or 3 tier guy. So here are some guys I think you should think about in that category. Yep. Zach Charbonnet from Seattle, Elijah Mitchell from San Francisco, Jaylen Warren from Pittsburgh, and Zamir White from Las Vegas.
You don't have to have the starting running back of a team to draft his backup. So you can draft Elijah Mitchell, even if you didn't draft McCaffrey. Because, hey, what do you want as a flyer? You want the guy with the high ceiling, right? Well, hey, nobody's got a better high ceiling than the running back who could take over in a great position for a team who scores a lot of points.
It's such a better pick than getting a backup tight end, or if you have a quality quarterback, a backup quarterback, or your 7th wide receiver on your roster to take a flyer on him.
My number 2 overall goes to Marion Butts of San Diego. Quite simply, he's gained more yards than anyone else this year on the ground. And what's most impressive about Marion Butts to me is the teams, when they play San Diego, expect to run. Let's face it, folks. San Diego's quarterback, Billy Joe Tolliver, doesn't strike fear into too many NFL defenses. They're expecting to run, and he still gains the yards. That's why he's my number 2.
Well, let's go now to the number 1 running back in the NFL. My pick, former Heisman Trophy winner Barry Sanders of the Detroit Lions.
Surprise!
Surprise, surprise, folks. The most rushing yards in the NFC, 1,081 yards from the line of scrimmage. Second best rushing average in the NFL, next to Barry Ward. As well, we talked about the two-dimensionals for Randall Cunningham, and that's what makes Barry Sanders so great. He has caught more passes this year and gained more yards in the air than any other running back in the NFL. And that's what makes him my most valuable running back in the NFL.
So we will put on your screen now. We broke down the top 10 quarterbacks and the top 20 wide receivers. If you haven't seen those videos, check those out. And until next time, take care, everybody.
All right, we'll see you next time.